Loud. There you go.
Great.
All
Thank
right,
you.
wonderful. And if anybody wants to do a local recording, have at it.
Yes. Thank you, Camilla.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks very
Camilla. And for any members of the public that are on, we'll hold the Q&A till the end of the meeting. So first order of business, vote to accept minutes of the previous SAB meeting, which was March 28th.
I move we accept the minutes. From
Okay,
the last
second,
meeting.
Second?
Howard, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed. All right, Commissioner update. David, three points we're looking for, as well as anything else you've got in your box: status of the 2022 reallotment fund, RFR, and project concepts. Current FY spending against the GA, which you had sent out yesterday, I guess it was. An update on the partnership with the NIB. David.
Yes, well, good afternoon. Great to be with you all. Hope you're doing well. MCB continues to do well here. We're making progress as things continue to open back up. So we've got our team here. We've got Nate here to speak on his projects. I know John's going to talk about NIB. But generally, let me lead you through. We're in a good place with these reallotment projects where many of them, if not all of them by now, have at least had their kickoff meeting and been awarded and things like that. So I'm just actually coming out of the technology skills survey with HSRI. They just had their kickoff meeting prior to this, so we're excited about that. Nate is here. Nate can give us the specifics on disability as a qualification. As you know, or as you may know, that is a second part of a reallotment project that we started previously. And then Nate's managing a few of these for us. He's managing disability as a qualification, the impact of COVID-19, and then remind me, Nate, one more. The VR consumer survey, analytics. So Nate, do you want to give them an update here of where those are in progress?
Yeah, sure. We had the kickoff meeting with the UMass for disability and qualification, like David mentioned. That's a continuation of working with first identifying skill sets that people naturally develop and having some sort of disability, and now matching those skill sets to the needs of employers across the state. So that's the next step of that one. We had the kickoff meeting actually earlier this week, and are rolling on that one. The impact of COVID and VR consumer projects they're both contracts have been fully executed at this point. So that means we have scheduled the kickoff meetings, and those are coming up next week and the week after for those two projects.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that's it on the VR projects. I mean, we're looking good. And there is Sleek Machine is doing one. I got an update. Kara Sittig, one of our VR supervisors, is helping to run that. That's the VR welcome kit. And they're making progress there. They're on track to be able to have that completed on time. So we're in a good place.
Okay. Have for the 2022 reallotment projects, David, has everything now been awarded?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Kim, Amy, Howard?
No.
All right. Next is current FY spending against the GA. And I know
Yeah.
you sent that out.
I had sent that out if you got it. And
Which I have it right here.
yeah. So, we continue to be well funded here. I mean, we've got plenty of money, so the goal is trying to spend it all. And John, I'm sure, can probably interject on that. But I think it's appropriate to talk about the budget in general here. There were several amendments that failed. I think you are all on our stakeholder list. You should have gotten our stakeholder email update on the budget process from Chandra.
Yeah, I did see that. Thank you.
Yeah, that email went out. So while there were several amendments, they failed in the House version anyway. So we'll see if any, get added in the Senate and can make it through the conference committee. So we're still operating with the 850 base more, I guess you can put it, that the House is trying to give us in their budget. And, some of that then is going to go towards certain programs as indicated by the legislature, but we'll see. As you know, the governor's budget is the first step in the process. The House budget is the second step. The Senate budget is the third step, and then the conference committee, and then the governor vetoes, and then the override. So, we're not even halfway through yet. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think we're in a strong financial position. Again, we have more money than we know what to do with, to tell you the truth. And John, you can give an indication of where we are with potential reversions. But I mean, I think we've got all the rest of May and all the rest of June. So with 2 months left and things opening back up, I mean, I think we're optimistic that we're going to be able to spend most of it, right, John?
Yeah, I think for the earmarks, we are going to spend a good chunk of it. Some of the vendors have already limited the referrals that they can take, but their money is just about out. The staffing capacity is at capacity. A couple of vendors still have a lot of room as far as money available, but I guess they're taking what they can with the staffing that they have on board. We continue to encourage our workers to keep referring and let the vendors decide if they can handle the referrals or not. But yeah, we're in good shape on that.
So year to date, we're 19.3. And, I think you're going to see reversions. The large amount will be in our Turning 22, our deaf-blind extended supports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we still have a lot of the day programs limiting the number of people they can take or limiting how they open. Not because they don't have consumers, they just can't find the staff to go back to full strength or do what they were doing before. They just are not able to find staffing. So you'll see a lot of those reversions, as David said, coming back from that program because they just don't have the staffing to take consumers into the programs.
So I had a quick question, if I could, on the 850 that you talked about that went into the recent House budget. Chandra's memo seemed to indicate that it was for assistive technologies and training, which was an earmark from last year. But what you're saying is it's the general PAC 850 that got put back in, not the assistive technology. So you seem to say
close, not the PAC money. Remember, the PAC money was COVID related from the previous fiscal year.
Okay, so the 850 is the assistive technology earmark from a year ago. That's sort of one. And then the second thing, John, is I seem to recollect that when you contracted out the 850, you gave estimated amounts to each of the vendors.
Mm-hmm.
And if a vendor has spent their money and has capacity, and another vendor hasn't spent their money but doesn't have capacity, are you free to move that money around?
Contractually, I don't. That's not something I don't deal with. We'd have to go through the whole process of reducing the contract and getting the vendor to sign off on the reduction and having it increase the other contract. And
okay.
So that it becomes since we're heading towards the end of the year and the fiscal process probably for the agency will sort of wind down sometime in mid-June. It would be difficult to do that. but
Yeah.
there's still
Okay.
hope. And as long as those vendors keep trying to get consumers, they can keep taking them in. So
Theoretically, yes, but practically, probably
yeah,
no.
yeah. Theoretically, you could say yes, you could do that.
Theoretically, yes.
But it all
practically, no.
takes some time, and whether we make it to give them enough time to have the time to wrap it up by June 30th, it wouldn't give them more than 2 or 3 weeks of time.
Yeah. So they're practically not. Amy,
But they're
Kim?
still getting referrals. I saw some referrals coming through this morning for that one of the vendors that has some money
Oh.
left. So they're still coming in.
All right, good. Amy, Kim, Dr. Purcell, anything from you guys?
No, I would say I remain optimistic that this will continue, but it looks good so far, and hoping that if there's any way I can help in terms of the allocations, or there's ways that perhaps from an academic institution standpoint we could help, happy to try to help. But I will keep my fingers crossed that the budget continues to make its way through the process.
David,
All
this
right.
is Kim, and I was
Yes.
curious, do you know when the Senate budget will be out? Is it late May or?
Yeah, good question. Chandra and I were just discussing that this morning. I think they're projecting at least 2 or 3 weeks from now,
Mhm.
but that could change.
Okay,
Thanks.
Sure.
all right. NIB,
NIB, John has
Okay.
the detailed update there. What I would say generally though is that's very positive. I mean, remember, we're pioneering this with NIB. We're the first state to be able to send consumers, and there's a series of courses that they need to pass through. And I think they've passed through one course so far.
Yep, they finished the first course. They gave them a 2-week break, and now they're going to start on the second course. It's something to do with sales and marketing, and then that's the second one. That's only like 3 days, and then the next course will be 20 days. It's about how to manage the platform that they're going to be on, how to interact with that platform as far as all the behind the scenes stuff you have to do, managing the orders, helping consumers that have a problem placing an order. So that'll be, those 2 courses will be completed by June 30th. And then there'll be a 4th course coming up probably in August or so, that will again put them on actual working on a platform. And then they will be talking about developing. So they're going to give them a site full of products ready to be sold. And then they're going to work on them on how to develop their own territory or their own internal local products that they can also add to those. So again, a lot of meetings are going on. They're planning a lot of things, and we have 3 consumers that right now are scheduled to be on target for that. And then they're talking about another class in September, and we have several more that we could introduce to that class in September to start the process again. So it's looking good. It's a good training program. It seems like they have good curriculum, the marketing and all that, and how it comes out as operating as an e-commerce business person. That will be something we'll have to keep working with, and they'll be offering assistance from their end to make sure those vendors can be successful, and we'll offer what we can, and we'll looking forward to see that roll out.
John, who provided the training? Was it the NIB directly, or did they sub it out to somebody?
They subbed it out to an organization in Texas. They have others that they're going to sub it a contract out with, and they seem to have. I think the second and third are their own people that are providing the training, because it's
That's
on
right.
their abilities, one platform that they've been using. Or so yeah, I think they're doing that on their own. But the first piece with all the assistive technology stuff was contracted out.
Now, was that funded through NIB, or was that funded through MCB?
The MCB is paying a cost per program out of VR funds.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say both. I mean, they spent millions of dollars building out their platform, making it accessible, their e-commerce platform, because traditionally we've tried to do it before. John can speak to that. Amazon and eBay. We've tried to get consumers to do it, but those platforms really are not that accessible, which is why mostly it's failed. This is accessible, which we think, that's why we're so encouraged. We think it can succeed.
Okay, any questions from the SAB?
Yeah,
Comments?
this is Amy. John, I have a peripherally related question. What's happening to the folks who were employed in as vending stand operators, with the
Randolph
decreased-
Shepherd.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, with the decreased traffic in buildings and all of that? What's happening with that, and what kind of assistance, if any, are those folks receiving?
So the vending, obviously, as you mentioned, yeah, the buildings are slow to return.
Yeah.
So our new vending director is looking at putting in automated systems that allow consumers to self-serve themselves. So that would allow the vendor to reduce their labor, because obviously you don't need as much if everyone's going through and picking out their sandwich and then scanning it and walking out with it. It doesn't require someone to be there all the time, but so the vendor would be mostly stocking and taking care of any issues related to the equipment that's going on. That type of system would require a lower number in the building. I mean, higher numbers would be great, but it could bring some revenue back in. It really is problematic. A lot of the vendors are going to take a pay cut.
The
There's
foot
no doubt
traffic
about
isn't there.
Yeah, they're going to take a pay cut. If that's something, a couple of them tried to get into this NIB process, but didn't make it on the first round. They may have another shot at it in the next round. But it really, the whole program nationwide is really a mess right now, because
Yeah.
every single state is having the same issue with low headcount in the buildings. And if there isn't that type of traffic in the building, then there's not going to be anything to be purchased. I've heard that a lot of the DC vendors are really struggling because everybody's teleworking from home.
Mhm.
Hardly anybody in the building. So I think this is a nationwide thing, and it may cause over here more locally, the transportation building. We have a stand in there. They've expanded. CVS expanded in there, and 7-Eleven. So therefore,
boy.
that's going to kill your coffee market, and that's going to kill your snack market. So that vendor, when they return to that property, is going to have it with low head count, and these two businesses available with off the street access or on the street access that you can just walk in, grab what you want, and then head up to your office instead of going to search for our stand on the 8th floor or whatever it might be on. So it's going to be a problem for, again, different locations, different types of issues. Our own building, we're looking at piloting the first automated system here, but we usually have 1,500 people in our building, and now we're lucky if we have a couple hundred, 200-300 a day in there.
Is that automated system accessible?
Yeah, exactly. The contract that we're putting out, Jim has used this in his former job in DC, and it's fully accessible. There are 2 or 3 companies that produce these micro markets, but there's only this one is the one that has the one that's fully accessible. The others have partial accessibility or minimal accessibility. This company that he's working with, they've come here, they've toured several of the locations. It's basically, we'll buy the equipment, we'll put it all in. It's stuff that doesn't need to be fixed to the walls or anything like that. It comes in and we just roll it in, and if we have to move it someday, we just roll it out. So it really, it's coolers and different types of refrigeration and different types of displays that you would display stuff that needs to be, refrigerated or just snack items. And the whole idea is that there's a camera in there and it's watching you. And as you walk out, you scan it and it charges your card, debit or credit card, and then you go on your way with your lunch or your snack. So we're going to be piloting that here first. So Jim is just going through the contracting process. We have to move that forward. Again, everything it takes some time with getting this new company into the state system. Once we do that, he has 2 or 3 locations that he's looking at converting fairly quickly. Hopefully he can do it before June 30th, he would hope. And then with a few more to follow between July and September. The courts, they indicate that they want us to come back, but then on further visiting the sites, and there's really very few people in the courthouse still. And they talk about the jury rooms, but they have juries come in, but potential jurors come in. But the problem is that those people are all gone by 9:30. So a vendor needs more than a 2-hour window in the morning. We're trying to speak to several of them about opening maybe for breakfast only. So a couple are interested in that type of concept where you make the money you make in the morning and then just close down and you don't have any more, there's no overhead in the afternoon. So trying to convince a couple of them to try that out anyway to see if that would work.
If a Randolph Shepherd vendor loses his money, does it come out of his or her pocket, or is there a subsidization that occurs?
No, they would lose their money now. So we're having a lot of vendors. So right now we have about 6 vending stands that are going to be relocating because vendors have retired or left. So those 6 vendors, obviously going to be a new stand. We will give them the inventory. There is no inventory left from the old stands because it's all expired. So those folks will get the regular inventory when they move from stand to stand in a regular process.
We provided them a hardship payment during COVID.
Yeah, so we've also found that other states have used VR dollars to help assist vendors restart. We have a couple that have shown some interest, but one we were ready to move on him, but he's going to be on vacation. He's doesn't want to come back until September. So we'll see what happens there. So there's a couple. So there is that option. We open their case, we process them through VR, and then we buy these supplies through VR funds, and they get started with that. But so yeah, I mean, they could. There is some products that we can't buy because the companies don't deal with us, like Coke or Pepsi. The soft drink companies, they pretty much deal directly with the vendors. So if they so we'll get them started back most of the way, but they will have a little bit. They have to put a little bit of money in to get back going again.
How many people are affected?
About 27 now, 26, 27.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not surprised, but it was put on my mind to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's too bad. Any other questions from the committee? All right, next, program updates. So looking at the dashboards on registrations, process, and outcomes.
Yeah,
So I guess that's Nate, right?
Yeah, we've made great progress here, particularly with the new tool now being fully online and all of the bugs worked out, and it's working very well. So Nate has some great numbers to report. Mr. Scrocky.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to anybody who may be a mother. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen and just go over the report since that's what we've been doing. It's been going pretty well doing it that way. All right, so I got the dashboard up. So a couple changes. We did add the 2019 total registrations.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Nate.
Yeah, no problem. And so far, and you may have noticed from the last that the 2021 number went up a little bit too. The reason why that went up was we reran that because during this calendar year, some of the registrations we processed were from the previous year, and we backdate them to make sure there was, just in case people needed the COB dated correctly and the date they were registered for tax abatements or something like that. So that's why that number increased a little bit. But as you can see, we have already processed, and this is really through April, 747 registrations this calendar year, which is putting us on pace to be at over 2,200 cases for the year. Now we'll see if that continues to trend that way. 2,200 would put us well above numbers before COVID even, which is talking to some of the providers to reach out. I reached out to just kind of see why the numbers were going up, and a few of them responded that they're just seeing more people through the the offices of the different places, just because they feel some people were just cooped up because of COVID and have waited. And unfortunately, some may have waited too long. Some, just kind of put things off. And so that's why they're seeing an increase in traffic in the offices, which is why we're seeing, at least for the first portion of the year, an increase in registrations. Getting down to the current inventory, which is the next little section here. So as you can see, at 5.4, we have 0 cases in quality control. So that means we had no cases to QC at that point. We only had 11 cases in central registration, those are cases that are waiting to go over into the AWARE system. We had 0 cases that came through in fax, and we had 12 cases that are out for more verification. Now, 9 of those are being reviewed by a doctor, and 3 are waiting for more information from the providers. So we're hopeful to get those down to 0 pretty soon as well, as soon as we get that information back. But right now we're processing registrations almost in real time. As they come in, we're working on them that day or the next day, and we're getting them out to the regions. So quite a bit different than it was a few months ago. Like David said, this is partially in part of the system that was put in place to have the information go over from our registration system to our case management system, and automating a lot of that information to create the case. It saved a lot of time in data entry, and here are the results. So we
made
are
the efficacy of the data go up, meaning you don't have to go back and rework it.
exactly. You're right. So it's been a very positive change for us. We did have our hiccups, of course, getting it implemented. It took about 6 weeks of going back and forth, but it's working really well right now. And we're really working towards the goal, just to say anything that comes in through the central reg will be processed within 10 business days. And we're hoping to communicate that soon.
Okay.
And then going through open SR, SRC cases, a little bit of a dip in SR adults, a little bit of very small rise in SR children, SR DBS, nothing too surprising there. Same thing with the open VR cases. We're currently have 638 open VR cases, which is just an increase of 3. We lost 21 out of in our pre-ETS youth. There was previously 208, we're down to 187, and same thing with transition youth, we lost 5, but again, nothing out of the ordinary there. For closed cases for SR children, we're up to 30 for the year. SR adults, we're up to 614. For fiscal year 2022, we're up to 111 closures for VR, successful closures, and we're at 81 closures for unsuccessful closures. And support services, we have 822 people currently referred to this calendar year to either assistive technology, rehab teaching, or ONAP. Does anybody have any questions about the dashboard?
Not on my end.
Nate, thank you for the summary, really helpful. I'm glad to see things are moving along much better. Do we know, and I don't know whether you're the right person to ask this question, but once a person is registered, how long is it taking for them to be assigned to someone?
So once they're registered, once we confirm they're registered, and then it might take a day or two to get it. Like we take the registration, we QC it. Once we determine that person is indeed legally blind, we go through the process of putting it into our case management system, which is we used to be all data entry and now is somewhat automated. And there is still some data entry elements, and we need to attach the I report and those type of things. So there is still a process to it. That usually happens within 1 or 2 days. And at that point, once it goes into the case management system, it's assigned to the regional director, and the regional director gets in the case management system, gets an indication that there's a new case. And they go in and they'll assign that to a worker, and then it's up to the worker at that point to reach out to that person for an intake appointment, which is kind of our initial contact to set up the goals and see where that person is. And
Sure.
that could take from that point when the director sends it out to the worker. It really depends on the worker's schedule, but they're usually contacting them. And John, you probably know as well, probably within 1 to 3 days, they're reaching out to those folks because they might be on the road for a couple of days with other appointments and those type of things. So it might be a few days after that point.
Okay.
Is there a backlog of consumers waiting to be assigned or getting services?
No,
No,
nope.
no. The assignment, especially on the R side, SR side, it goes through pretty quick. It goes right to a supervisor, and then they drop it in right into a worker's queue. On the VR side, we verify if they want VR services or SR services, and then that goes either way. So there's no backlog. Like I've been covering Region 1 now since the director's on maternity leave, and I do have someone that's 46, and we're trying to find out if they want VR or SR, and they haven't called me back. So I'll keep trying to reach this. So that sometimes becomes the delay on someone who is that age that should be working or might want to work. We need to clarify that before we give it to a VR counselor, because we can't put it on the VR caseload, because once we move it, the case moves to application stage. So it's important to verify, and then we have to close it unsuccessful if they, or out of application stage, if they say, no, I don't want to work, I have too many health issues. So we verify that before anyone of working age wants to move forward. Like last week, I talked to a guy who he was again in his 40s, had a lot of issues at home. His wife was sick, his mother was sick. He was sort of her caretaker on both sides now. He said, no, I have no interest in time to work. How can I work? So we moved him over to the SR side, although his age might indicate that he might be someone who would be interested in working. So these things have to be checked out. Additional information has to be obtained before you make that call to go into the right service area at the agency.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joe, if there's anything that's outside of like that 10-day mark from something, please feel free to reach out to me and so we can look into it and follow up. And right, like John said, there's always circumstances where there might be a good reason why someone hasn't been processed yet or something, but
Yeah.
it's worth looking into at that point.
Yeah, but so what you're saying then, though, is that other than the examples like the guy taking care of his wife and his mother, that somebody's signing up, they're getting registered, they're getting assigned, and they're getting services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole process is, they're at most with us 5 to 10 days, and then like I said, a few days maybe to get out to a worker, but we're getting people services quickly.
Yeah, the worker may reach out, and the scheduled appointment may not happen for a week down the road, 2 weeks down the road, but that's because of scheduling and
Right.
where they may live in the state or in the service area of that worker, or how many new cases they're processing. So on the VR side, it's usually very quickly because they don't have a backlog, and they can do. A lot of them still want Zoom visits or virtual visits.
Mhm.
So that can be done real quick. The SR side, sometimes because it's a larger number of cases, that could take a couple of weeks before they get their first visit. But a majority or many of them are seeing people in person now, so which is good.
I
But
think
that
the
puts
50,000
that puts the driving time back in play, though. So you are limited to, especially if you're in areas where you're driving a long distance to clients, say Western Mass, it could bring it down to seeing 3 clients a day instead of on the phone where you might do 4 or 5 clients a day.
Right.
I think the 50,000 foot takeaway is from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever it was, when we began contemplating the systems and going out for RFR and all the stuff we were going to need. We went from having little to no understanding of any of these metrics to realizing we had many people in the queue or stuck in the process or something, to refining that into So John, you've been here for years. Nate, I think this is the best this system has worked.
Yeah, I mean, my experience here, it's the quickest turnaround for when people register and actually getting services is probably the quickest turnaround time.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
All right, update on staffing changes and levels.
Yes. So, Nate, can you stop sharing your screen so I can
Yep.
find that data that Camilla gave me? I mean, generally, we're in a really good place. Let me just get to that. All right, so MCB's FY22 FTE cap, that's full-time employees cap, is 133.5. That's 133.5. The agency's current FTE level is 129.8, with several positions in the hiring process, which will bring our agency to meet our FTE cap. And we might even actually slightly exceed that. We're waiting to hear because of the manner with which EOHHS HR compiles the data. So to date, our agency has 10 FTEs in the 2000 account. That's the turning 22 account, DBES. We have 71.5 in our SR account. That includes, and the breakdown of that is 7 in the admin operations account, 64.5 in the community services account. That's the main 1000 account. And then there's 5 positions in process in community services. So that's 3 certified orientation and mobility specialists, 1 registration specialist for Nate's unit, and an accountant for finance, as well as the backfill of our director of communications position. So then finally, we have 48.3 FTE in our federal account. And the breakdown there is 4 FTEs in the 3026 account. That's the OIB. That's the older independent blind, which is 1 OIB social worker, social counselor is in the final stages of hiring processes to cover the Western and Central region. So that person should be onboarded soon. And then the remainder in that count is 44.3 FTE, and that's most of the VR counselors.
Okay. Questions, comments?
So we're approaching full employment. I mean, we're in the pipeline to have full employment. And just as we get close, we then get retirements, you know what I mean? So it's always an ebb and flow.
Mhm. Okay. All right. No other questions or comments? All right. On ongoing discussions, status in the effort to automate notification of blindness to assessors for tax exemptions.
Yeah, we've made good progress here. So I'll start and then I'll let Nate get in on the nitty gritty. So I think it was right after our last SAB meeting, Nate, that we had myself, Lauren Lang, our general counsel, and Nathan here, and Nate had a meeting with the Department of Revenue's Division of Local Services team about us accessing their application, their gateway, which is the secure portal that the Department of Revenue's Division of Local Services makes available to all the 351 cities and towns. And that's where they share information with treasurers and clerks and assessors and really all of the people, all of the officials on the local level. That's where our data will sit. So what we'll do is we'll generate a list for Abington and we will send that to the Abington assessor. So when people who are blind, our consumers, want to get their local real estate tax abatement or excise tax abatement, they no longer will need the paper version. The assessor can have them just regularly fill out the form as they usually do, and then check the gateway, check the database to see if our consumer matches up. And if it does, great, they get their abatement. If not, they can call us to find out if there's something in the process or whatever. This is going to be a great improvement for our team, for the consumers, for the local assessors. This is a, you know, sometimes if it's a win, that's great. If it's a win-win, that's even better. This is a win-win-win. So we're really now starting to finalize. We've put a letter together that we're going to send out to our community to let them know of this regulation change that we've done and this process change that we're doing. Nate, what did I leave out?
Just that we're also in this process, it's giving us an opportunity to update our addresses to make sure we're doing a address verification. We're doing a death match on our registry as well, just to make sure that we have very clean data for when we do a mailing, that it's as accurate as it can be. Folks do have an option to opt out of it. So if they do not want their information shared, they will have that option not to have the information shared. But it is important to know that, you know, the assessors are only going to have the ability to see people that are in their town or city. Also, it's going to be triggered not by the assessor, it's going to be triggered by the abatement request. So that person is going to be asking for that request. So it's pretty clean. It's an easy share, and we're really looking forward to it. We expect it's going to really cut down on the number of inquiries around this. We get thousands of inquiries, either through workers or through the registration department, through phone calls, through emails, that we are hoping, you know, maybe not the first year, but you know, as we move forward with this, really cut down on those communications.
Okay, good. Anything else? Status on rewrite of reform of organization. I know that's something that was from the last meeting was backburnered, but anything to report there?
No, nothing new. I mean, I think the manner with which EHS has indicated that they want to operate is be very specific, and whatever changes we need to make, first contemplate if we can do it through regulation. You know, we're looking at something for our mini Randolph-Shepard Act, but there is no like legislation pending or anything. We did get something like, for example, it's a backwater, you know, thing, but it's like in the SUP budget, there was something on how we carry money forward with MRC, like a, you know, so, but that's a, you know, administrative backwater thing that it matters to us, but you know, for Joe consumer, it doesn't really impact them directly.
Okay. Update on phone system procurement.
Yeah, so we've contracted with KMBS, Konica Minolta Business System, to develop the functional requirements. They've done that, and for our phone technology solution. So the discovery sessions were facilitated by KMBS. Those have completed. They gathered feedback. They put all those suggestions together, and those inform the requirements document, which they're putting together, and they're going to be passing that to EOHHSIT, who will then pass that on to EOTS, who is the procurer of the phone solutions. So we got lots of great feedback. We had 2 discovery sessions, both from our consumers, our staff, the union, you know, various stakeholders. So again, we're going to share those requirements and that statement of work with IT. They'll then begin the procurement process. And so, you know, it's in process right now. We're still optimistic that we can get this procured and installed sometime over the summer or late summer. That's our hope. It's some of it is out of our hands now. Some of it is with EOTS to see what they come up with.
Okay. Questions? The last on the agenda is update on PPE available to MCB staff.
Yeah, so KN95s continue to be available for MCB staff upon request, as well as other stuff too, whether they need a face shield or a gown or gloves or whatever the case, sanitizer, whatever the case may be. certain direct staff who provide in-person close contact training and instruction to consumers, such as rehabilitation counselors, orientation and mobility counselors, assistive technology counselors, are approved to get N95s. The N95s, as opposed to the K95s, those N95s require a fit testing, which we've done and will do, so the staff continue to have access to disposable masks, cloth masks, as well as the gowns, gloves, sanitizer, all the things I mentioned. So, you know, whatever they need to be successful, we're trying to get them.
Okay. Anything from the SAB? New business. I'll go around the table, starting with Amy. Anything you on your mind to discuss?
Are you muted, Amy?
Amy is muted.
Mhm. I don't have anything, Joe. Thank you. Mrs.
All right.
Sorry, I was muted. and
Yes, you were.
I would not unmute. I kept banging on the key. No, I don't have anything to ask. Thanks.
All right, Dr. Purcell.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I actually had just a couple of questions that might fit more under old business, but I don't know if there's time for that or not.
Absolutely.
So quick questions. One on a survey I know that we've been wanting to do with consumers. That's still on hold at this point. Is there any desire or will or opportunity to move forward with that?
So I would ask which survey, as we have several tools.
Sorry about that. Web survey of consumers. That's all I really had. I didn't have a whole lot of information. I just, the more feedback we can get from our consumers, the better. So I was just more curious overarchingly. I apologize if I don't know the details of that.
No, that's okay. So yes, right immediately before this meeting, I was in the assistive technology survey skills kickoff meeting with Mr. Pooler, who's the project manager for that.
Okay.
We've engaged with HSRI that helped us develop a previous survey or set of surveys, both the short form and long form. So we're very pleased with that because they know our organization pretty well from doing that project. So they're going to put together, I think they're looking at somewhere between 40 and 50 questions survey that will be specifically geared towards people who have interacted with vocational rehabilitation services. Either they're going to be, they currently are, or they have been before. So I think there'll be like 3 different groups there that they'll look at. I think they hope to get several hundred respondents for each. So maybe like 600 total or something. And that needs to be complete by the end of the federal fiscal year, September 30th. So I think they're optimistic that they're going to be able to do that. They're looking at various modes. They're looking at large print delivered by mail, and they're looking at phone and or Zoom responses as well. So I think if we can get 100 responses per region, that would be a great result for them. And, you know, I think they're going to be looking at things like, did you come to MCB using assistive technology? Were we your first exposure to assistive technology? What assistive technology are you using? Are you using JAWS? Are you using Zoom text? Are you using handheld magnifier? Like all these types of questions around assistive technology as they intersect with vocational rehabilitation training.
Thank you.
How far back
I
do you
appreciate
go?
that. Sorry.
How far back are you going, David, in terms of when the service was provided?
Yeah, that's a good question. That was one of the things we raised today. I mean, I think it's anybody who's touched VR, like to use VR dollars on it, there's got to be a VR component to all of it. So what I would say is it would be interesting to go to the pre-ETs and, you know, people 14 to 22. Another cohort would be people currently working who are successfully closed. Then another interesting cohort would be people who came into VR and for whatever reason, we weren't able to successfully close them. And then further, people that came into VR, had a successful closure, but then retired or aged out of the workforce, looking at them and figuring out what assistive technology worked for them. So I think they're going to consider all of that and probably have a mix would be my guess.
But, like, would you go back years or would it be kind of so you would go back years?
Good question. They're gonna go back some years. What that cutoff is it gonna be 25 years or is it gonna be 10 years? I don't know. If you have opinions, I would make those known and we can pass them on to Mr. Pooler so he can be sure to ask the question, or, if there's a focus part of the community wants to look at. We're gonna look at, there's not a lot of data in this area for people with disabilities to begin with. And specifically for people with blindness, we don't know if there's any. So we're going to be kind of charting a new course here.
So I think you've answered a couple of my follow-ups. Thank you for that. I'm very much in favor of trying to do something. If we can help with it, great. I guess my follow-ups are more, do we have input into the questions, which it sounds like perhaps that's possible. And then secondly, has there been some historical data, or is this really the first time we don't really have any comparative data? It sounds like we really don't have a lot of comparative data here.
No, there's not a lot. I mean, there's some select things like the American Community Survey and their disability supplement had maybe one or two questions that were particular to the blind. The WHO did a study that, again, maybe that was all disability. So maybe there was a few questions that were specifically devoted to blind. So there's some on disability with technology, but then it's the definition of technology. Remember, we're using assistive technology, which is different than, we'll be measuring the rudimentary things like, do you have a computer? Do you have an email? That's kind of technology, capital T. We're interested in that, but we're also interested in focusing in specific on the assistive technology component. Are you using magnifiers? Are you using JAWS, Zoom text, those types of things? Right.
Do you know, Commissioner, do they have any practitioners as part of this group that is putting together the questions? And they do. Okay, great.
Well, so HSRI is the main consultant. They've indicated that they're probably going to be reaching out, that they already have some, but they'll probably reach out further. So if you think your team or other teams can build value, please let us know that so we can pass that on to Mr. Pooler so they can put it in.
Okay, well, I think we can, but you and I can talk offline about that. That's great. I did have one other follow-up, and I apologize if this was covered, and it may be more of a question for John, but I remember last time there was some mention of some attempts at some hiring. Just didn't know if we've made any progress in that area.
Yeah, we have made progress. So one of the things we're coming up against here is just a very competitive market for talent. And so we've had a couple of instances in many areas with Nate's position, with the regional, some of the regional positions, particularly the orientation and mobility counselors, where people have been interested and they've gone through the process, but then they end up taking another job for whatever reason, because it's more attractive to them for whatever reason. So, we've run into that a little bit, but I'm confident that we're going to be able to land people. It's just the state system can be frustrating because low end, you're looking at 90 days from the time you see it on Mass Careers or, see it somewhere to the time you get, the minimum is 90 days. And it's actually closer to probably 120 days till you're actually onboarded and started working and things. John, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, you've covered it. We're good.
Thank you for indulging me, Joe and Commissioner. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Anything else from the SAB? All right. Any questions from the public? I don't see any hands raised. So if there's nothing else, our next meeting is on June 6th. Do we want to, I'm sorry, not June 6th. I know that. I believe it's June 10th. If I have that correctly.
Let me check on the calendar here. June 10th. I don't have the hold yet for that, but
Yeah, that would be the second Friday.
That's the second Friday.
Yeah.
so put a hold for that at noon.
Yeah, and probably the same for July 8th, although that's 4th of July week.
Yeah, and just to let you know, for quorum purposes, I will not be available on July 8th.
And I don't believe I'll be available July 8th, so maybe we should take a hiatus in July and return in August. We often do that in the summer times, take a
Yeah.
month.
Yeah, and we have August 12th on the calendar, so maybe we skip
Skip
the July meeting and go to August 12th, if that works for folks.
David, do you have August 12th on your calendar?
August 12th?
Let me
that
go
right?
back to that now. I was setting the thing.
I
for
wasn't
that.
sure I had it either, so.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was me just blocking out the second.
That's good planning on your part.
I don't have August 12th, but I can put a
Okay.
hold on that.
Is
So why don't we put a hold on August 12th if that works for folks?
Yeah.
It
that
works
the
for
right-
me.
Is that the right date?
It
that
is a
the right-
Friday.
It
It's
is
the
a
second
Friday.
Friday,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, I know why I'm thinking. I have a wedding to go to, but I think it's later.
It'll give you an excuse not to go to the wedding.
No, this is a command performance. I don't have any choice on this one.
All right, if there's nothing else and no questions, we seem to be being very efficient here.
Yeah.
So if there's nothing else, everybody stay safe, be well. See you later, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day. Happy Mother's